Hello and welcome to this week's Talking Lower League with Talking Boys. Do you know anybody that listens to the podcast on a weekly basis will know I say the same thing at the start of every episode, which is we've got loads to get through, or I put emphasis on the word another because we've got another something, another Scottish Cup weekend, another drama. Well, this episode of all episodes is just everything thrown into one. It seems we've got the managerial merry-go-round in Scottish lower league football is kicked off in the last 24, 48 hours. We've got key results from the Scottish Cup as well as league action this week. And we've got to look ahead to the first of the post-split fixtures that are coming up at the weekend. And also, we're going to be chatting about to finish this week's episode. We can't not talk about it. Is how has the now failed, thank God for that, European Super League, how could that potentially impact Scottish football and Scottish lower league football moving forward, and what can we learn from it? And as ever, I'm thrilled because I don't think I could survive doing this on my own, as I'm thrilled to have my good friend Ross Gray by my side as ever to talk through all of this. And I'm sure, much like every week, Ross, you're going to have some very strong opinions about everything this week, aren't you?
I know, I feel like it's becoming a gimmick at this point, so I'm trying to tone it down.
No, where's the fun in that? Where's the fun in that? Ross, and as I've just spoke through, loads to get covered, so let's kick off. And I think really there's only one place for us to start, and that's with Brechins City Football Club and the playoffs that will or will not happen. Now, for anybody that's not been keeping on top of this, because to be honest, we wouldn't blame you, there's been so much going on, and we've all got lives to lead on top of everything that happens in football, is that Brechins City have released a statement this week saying ultimately that they do not agree with the thought of a playoff, surprise, surprise, because it's very much looking like they are going to be Club 42 and have to face off against a Kelty or a Borough Rangers. Of course, before they released a statement explaining their stance on why they don't think it's fair. For example, they think that they've played too many games, or it's just wild. I know I can't even get through it without chuckling away here. Of course, there was a leak, if you want to call it that, in a couple of publications in which the Brechin board had put forward some proposals. Instead of a playoff, obviously there would be no relegation, yet again, surprise, surprise. And League Two would actually have 12 teams in it. I wonder who those two additional teams would be. I highly doubt it would be a Highland League and a Lowland League one. So considering it's a Brechins City proposal we're talking about here. Ross, I think overall, before I ask you here, my point of view on this is, yet again, as you can tell from my tone, not surprised whatsoever. And Joe, and yet again, just to emphasise this, because I do think it's important, I have a lot of respect for Brechins City supporters, Brechins City's history as a football club, the away day, everything about it. I'll always enjoy going to Brechins City, and whether that be as an SPFL club or whether that be as a Lowland League club or a Highland League club, however it would look. I hope we can do that again soon. However, I just feel as if the hierarchy at Brechins City, it's just embarrassment after embarrassment at this point. Take your medicine. You have not, the decisions that the hierarchy have made, rightly or wrongly, has therefore led to Brechins City being ultimately the poorest side in the country, probably for the last 3 years. You're talking about successive relegations, very poor managerial appointments, poor recruitment, and I think just seen it as well. Those Brechins City fans are embarrassed about this statement as well. Think about it. I know we're talking about the position that European Super League fans and stuff have been, to bring that back to the floor. Positions their fans have been put in this week. That's big English clubs with millions upon millions in the bank. I don't have to worry about things like their existence, like Brechins City have to do just now, and the worry that the fans are going through as well. Those fans have genuine genuine concerns about the direction of their club. And yeah, I'm just sick of it, to be honest, Ross. And see, to be honest, especially after the "this is football" angle that the SPFL have taken, which we'll get to later on in the episodes, it would be criminal, absolutely criminal, if they don't go ahead with the playoff now, to be honest. But anyway, sorry, I'm rambling on. What's your thoughts about all this?
I'm kind of going to try not to spoil the last part of the show, but I had to laugh at the SPFL statement. You know, we oppose the European Super League and we are against financial greed and corruption and, you know, these teams having all this power in Scottish fucking football. I just, the hypocrisy, and what they have done is dragged their heels for weeks. They have dragged their heels about this decision, about the relegation playoffs. You know, and it's, you know, Scottish football, we're in arms with supporters across the world and for this. They won't make a decision. This is the second year, and it is now 7:15 on the 21st of April. The decision, I believe, was supposed to be made at the start of the week, was it not? There's still no decision. They were tweeted repeatedly by Brechin fans, you know, fans of clubs throughout the pyramid, saying, you can't do this, you can't make these statements and then continue to withhold this information, which Brora and Kelty sit there waiting on. They just, and then the Brechin statement into the bargain, I was just like, what the fuck is going on here? It's just a total clusterfuck.
I think the fact that Bora Rangers, and I think Kelty have done this as well, Ross, and if they haven't, I'm sure they will, is that they've had to come out just to let people know, by the way, we meet all of the criteria to take part in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. Like, they shouldn't have to actually come out and go, just to let everybody know, our club, everything about us, we tick all the boxes in order to compete to be an SPFL club. The fact that they have to do that and pretty much shout to their own governing body is embarrassing in itself, Ross.
It's a disgrace. The handling is, as expected, a disgrace. The Brechin City statement, to then move on to that, it's, in a word, embarrassing. Another word, cringeworthy, pathetic, Weasley. I could go on.
The encyclopedia of the thesaurus, of Scottish football this week.
I'm conscious that I've used a lot of profanity to this point, so I'm trying my best not to. But it's just, it's pathetic. I cannot express how sorry I feel for Brechin fans, because even they are saying, we deserve this. We deserve to be in this playoff, and we deserve to be resoundingly beaten by whoever wins between Brora Rangers and Kelty Hearts. Now, the argument that they can only cling on to is, should Brora Rangers and Kelty Hearts been declared, you know, league champions based on however many games were played? That's not for us to decide. You know, it was done. They were asked, both leagues were asked to submit champions by the governing bodies, so they did it. You know, so that argument is already null and void. The Brechin statement is made worse for me because it is the board that have done this. As you said, it's shoddy recruitment, it's poor managerial choices, it's embarrassing. In a word, it's embarrassing. I feel so sorry for the supporters. I feel sorry for anyone that truly cares about Brechin City. It's just a really, really sorry state. And I really, honestly, I wanted the playoff to happen before. I pray that everything that I can possibly pray to this playoff happens now, because at this point, that board get what they deserve. The club doesn't, have to make that very clear. The club in itself, its history, its supporters don't deserve it, but that board gets every single thing they deserve.
Exactly. And do you know what? I want to see, because everybody's been weighing into this week, right? Fair enough. You know, it just goes to show yet again, I'm referencing the end part of the show, you know, the passion that Scottish football has and the supporters have and the clubs and the communities. Hats off to, I want to say, East Stirlingshire, first of all, who came out on their official Twitter account and publicly called out Brechin on the statement. People need to remember that East Stirlingshire were the first SPFL side to suffer relegation out of the SPFL, of course, in place of Edinburgh City. That was a fair and square, you know, two-legged ties. I mean, remember watching it, was fantastic, you know, and East Stirling should have taken that opportunity to go down, reset, you know, get themselves sorted again, look ahead to the future and plan to return to where they were for for, pretty much all of their history. Berwick as well. Berwick, crowd club, great club, also have done similar and went down. And instead of sulking and trying to sneak out of it and try and do pretty much what Brechin are trying to do, they have got on with it, resetting, and then they're trying to get back to where they once were. And I know, Ross, I know circumstances, COVID, etc. I know that, but 2 years now.
That's just what I was going to say to cut you off. This is the second year in a row they are pulling this shit. The second year in a row, they cannot be allowed to do it. I'm sorry. See if the playoff doesn't happen, the pyramid is dead. They should just stop using the word pyramid when it comes to Scottish football. It just can't happen. The playoff has to go ahead. Pure and simple. And
I'm really worried. I have to say, I was convinced it was going to go ahead. I think when we were briefly talking about it in last week's chat in our podcast, I was convinced it was going to go ahead. However, now I'm really questioning it. They're kicking the can down the road. I don't have a clue, what's happening. I know, for example, Brechin are they're pretty much saying that they're going to look at legal action if the playoffs go ahead. I mean, I keep saying it, I feel so sorry for the decent supporters of Brechin City and how they must be feeling and how torn they must be about all of this as well. And they must be sick about talking to people about it as well. And yeah, I just not that they'll be listening, because I mean, I highly doubt it, because they avoid fan engagement at all costs. But if anybody on the SPFL board is listening, and we're even talking about, for example, our own club, Ross, Clyde, obviously, Gordon Thompson on the Clyde board is now a massive part. I think he's now the League One and League Two representative on the SPFL board. Do the right thing. Do the right thing, because it's not just about this season. This is a precedent about how we move forward in Scottish football. We're very much on the cusp of something special. Scottish football in itself is special, right? But at the moment, I think we're very much on the cusp of something special with the quality and the direction of the Lowland League and the Highland League and the West Scotland leagues. I think they could potentially help build the future of our game. So respect them and let them have a go at joining the SPFL.
I think the key thing for me is, just because I know we've got a lot to get through, the point for me is they've talked about with the This Is Football campaign, we want to change Scottish football, we want to improve Scottish football. This is your first opportunity to prove it. So see if it's not all just words and sentiment, then do something about it. This is your chance.
Yeah, and let's just hope that, they had a couple of good points this week, the SPFL, so let's hope that there's a few more coming over the next few days. Let's pray that that's the case. Right, Ross, it's time, maybe a little bit, it's never nice, and you know what, you and Robertson, who was on the podcast last week, obviously Lanark's a live journalist, friend of the podcast. If you've not listened to that, go into our SoundCloud, Spotify, etc. It was brilliant to have him on. Rightly raised the point that he hates talking about managers losing their job, etc., etc. And do you know what? It's actually a bit of a shame that we're about to have what is the first, I would probably say, Talking Lower League segment called the Managerial Merry-Go-Round. And this is where Ross and I are going to discuss what has been a mental week so far for lower league managerial positions. Ross, and I think to give them all their due and their credit, I think we should just go through them one by one in no particular order, should I say. And Ross, I know you want to talk about this one first. Falkirk Football Club, I think today, only a few hours ago, the 21st of April, we're recording on, as Ross stated, have sacked their first team head coaches, obviously, the management duo of David McCracken and Lee Miller, as well as goalkeeping coach Derek Jackson. I think Derek Jackson's been at the club for a bit longer than the two coaches, but they've been relieved of their duties. That is really off the back of last night's, Tuesday night's defeat away to Peterhead. They get beat 1-0 last night. And Gary Holt, Director of Football, Sporting Director, will be taking over temporary control first team duties, I assume, until the end of the season. Obviously, it's 4 cup finals, what seems like for every single side in League One. in the next week, Ross. But yeah, really your kind of relatively immediate reaction to this news today.
I mean, I think for me, the obvious thing is Falkirk don't feel that they're going to get, at the very least, the title, if not promoted under Miller and McCracken. It feels very reactionary to last night. They have led League One for a vast majority of the season, I would say, and they're now second, third, tied second.
Yeah, I think they're tied second. Yeah.
So, as I said, maybe about 6 weeks ago, when you asked me if Inverness were going down, did I think Inverness would go down? And I said no. I said maybe 3 weeks ago now that Cove Rangers would win League One. And at the moment, it's in Partick Thistle's hands. Falkirk are still in the race. This is the thing. I think they've panicked. And I feel a little bit like it's possibly down to fan pressure. Because when they brought in Miller and McCracken initially, it was just, it's two Falkirk guys were going to come in, going to get a bit of passion into the squad. They were going to kind of get everybody back in the same hymn sheet, and then they got the job permanently. So for me, that felt like a project that Falkirk were willing to take on. They were pretty assured they would at the very least get promoted. That obviously doesn't now seem good enough. It looks as if they're after the title. It's difficult. It also was funny for me to read that, well, in the statement, it reads as if Gary Holt was almost reluctant to take on the position as first team coach. It's a bit strangely worded.
That's an interesting one, Ross, because I do think that, I imagine that Gary Holt, has probably had managerial offers since he left. Come on, Livingston.
It's funny you say that. Sorry to cut you off. I'm sure I remember reading or watching online someone saying that they heard that Gary Holt wasn't interested in management just now after Livingston. So,
well, that's the thing, Ross, and I think that's probably why the sporting director role at Falkirk ticked so many boxes. And I would, regardless of whether Gary Holt can get Falkirk promoted, by winning the league or winning the playoffs or whatever, I still doubt he'll be in charge next season. To be honest,
they've said that Gary Holt will be leading the campaign to bring in a new coaching setup for next season, regardless of what league they're in. So he's obviously explicitly said, "I don't want it long term."
There was something you said, Ross, which really sticks out for me at the moment with Falkirk, and that's the word project. I do think that they have panicked. I do think that it is short-termism as well for Falkirk, which I think is one of the key reasons why they're in League One in the first place. I thought that when they brought on McCracken and Miller, they were going to give them the time for a long-term project. Obviously, last season curtailed the drama around the title there. They didn't get the full campaign to try and win that title or get promoted, right? And then they're definitely going to make playoffs at least. I think it's a panic, throw the dice, to be honest with you. But yet again, the big question, and this is why I thought McCracken and Miller was a long-term project. They're learning on the job. This is the risk that Falkirk took when they hired them permanently. But with Falkirk bringing back their youth setup as well, I had all the makings of a long-term project, and there's no immediate quick fixes. Like I said, I know, obviously, Falkirk chairman, Gary Deans, who I know, great guy, and the board there, I know they'll be thinking, shit, we can't have a third season in League One. But would you really want to go for the short-term option just to get back to the Championship to then be back to square one a season or two later? They have to have a long-term vision and strategy, and it just seems a bit, I don't know, sporadic, poorly sporadic, if that's even a term. I've just plucked it out of thin air.
I think reactionary for me, I think, is as you say, panic. I think just kind of to close us on this on Falkirk, one of my favourite tweets I've seen today was, I can't remember what the username was, so I apologise to whoever it was, under the thread that they'd put on the Falkirk Twitter page, said, look, we need a manager who's got proven success recently. So you opened the, whatever it was, the imaginary book and said, checks what manager won League Two. Oh, for...
There's been so many people replying to the with the cracking image of Ray McKinnon celebrating Queen's Park's title win last night, funnily enough, which was obviously at the Falkirk Stadium. as well. So
Don't you just love how the world works?
You do. Ross, I'm going to we've got loads. I know we need to get through a lot here. I'm going to put you on the spot. Is there any names whatsoever that stick out for this job for you?
It's a strange one. It really is a strange one for me, because they still don't know if Falkirk will be in the Championship or League One. So honestly, I think some of that determines the calibre of manager they'll get, if I'm being honest. So to pluck a name out of thin air, maybe Neil McCann when John Robertson comes back. If John Robertson doesn't come back and Neil McCann gets an Inverness job, does John Robertson then take the Falkirk job? I've just plucked that again out of thin air, but...
You know, I think Neil McCann is a really good shout, you know, because you're really hoping that John Robertson gets the chance to go back to Inverness when he's ready, if he chooses to do so. If he doesn't, obviously Neil might get the Inverness job long term, but if that's not the case, I think that's a really interesting shout, Ross, and that's something that could work really well. I think Neil McCann seems to have grown as a manager since he was last obviously in the Dundee job and stuff like that, and he comes across really well. So that's a really interesting shout. I know it's boring, but yeah, the first name I thought of was Stuart Petrie. I think this job has got Stuart Petrie written all over it. So
you would back your boy though.
Yeah. Well, at least I'm not saying my other boy as well. So yeah, right, Ross. We're on the next stop on the managerial merry-go-round, and we are at the Indodrill, where Alloa Athletic live, and Peter Grant, King of the Wasps, has departed. He'll be in charge of Alloa for the remaining 2 games of the Championship season. However, he will be leaving at the end of his current contract, obviously in a few weeks' time. Me and you were texting about this before the show, and it kind of went by the statement that Mike Mulroney, the Alloa Athletic chairman, kind of seemed as if he didn't really want Peter to leave the club. I imagine that, and I think a lot of Alloa fans kind of made the assumption that he would get the chance to try and take them back up from League One next season. However, it seems that that's not going to be the case. Obviously, there's been some chat that if Eddie Howe comes in at Celtic, Peter Grant and Eddie Howe could reunite, and Peter Grant might be a first-team coach at Celtic again, even though I know he's been in that job before. So yeah, Ross, thoughts on this one? A bit less surprised?
A little bit less surprised. I was more surprised at the reaction from Alloa fans, because I'd always perceived that Alloa fans, as a majority, and also I can't speak for everybody, but as a majority, I thought quite liked the style of play that Peter Grant was trying to play. But going by the reaction today, it seems a lot more relief. Now, I'm conscious that obviously they're fresh from being relegated out of the Championship. There's that disappointment. I get that feeds in. I don't know. I think there's a future in non-league football for Peter Grant if he wants it. But as I said to you earlier, I am probably about 80 to 90% certain that there's a dugout in the East End of Glasgow with a seat with Peter Grant's name on it.
Yeah, I think you might be right. I mean, it seems to be a bit of a mix with Alloa fans. I've seen certainly, people saying that he played, under Peter Grant, they've played some of the best football they've seen at Alloa. However, there was some, mitigating circumstances, injuries, suspensions, everything that's been going on with COVID, and just the lack of recruiting a centre half and a really good striker, I think seems to be the case, and that's what a few Alloa fans I've seen. They've said they need to focus on, obviously, a manager, a good centre back, a good striker, and a good centre. A spine of a team on and off the park. So it's a big job. It's a really big job. Alloa's a really interesting one for me, Ross. It's not. I'm not fully convinced that Alloa. I don't think Alloa are going to bounce straight back up. Obviously they're a part-time side who have been punching above their weight in the Championship, coming back into what is a mental League One, and what could well be a mental League One next season, with the likes of, depending who goes up, who doesn't go up, Cove, Falkirk, Montrose, Queen's Park.
You're looking at a minimum of, at the very least, one of full-time Falkirk, full-time Partick Thistle. Well, potentially one could win the league and one could go up the playoffs in theory, but if you still get, as you say, Cove Rangers, Queen's Park, Montrose, who look to bounce back, and East Fife, who have done not too bad, maybe unfortunate to finish in the bottom half of the league, but will probably look to kick on next year. I know you're about to ask me who I fancy for that job. I don't even want to say it because I worry that that's going to put it into existence. You made a joke last week that maybe Danny Lennon would be available for the Alaba, comeback. I don't think anyone has talked about the fact that Danny Lennon's contract is up at Clyde very shortly, and I think that needs to be addressed very quickly.
Do you know what the funny thing is, Ross? See, when I heard about this news today, I did think Danny Lennon was the first one that popped into my head.
I'm really, really, I'm not coming back in this podcast if that happens. I'm saying it now.
I genuinely, and there'll be Clyde fans out there going, no chance would Danny Lennon leave Clyde to go to Alloa, etc., right? But I think if you think like that, you're living in the past. I mean, I think Clyde's have to really, really sell their ambition again to Danny Lennon to keep him around, I think, for the next couple of years. And because we know how good Alloa at cherry picking managers, obviously, we can talk about the likes of Paul Hartley, Jack Ross, Jim Goodwin. Danny Lennon obviously came in, done the Great Escape, and then obviously it didn't work out the following season. But Danny Lennon then was out the game for a while, and he's came back in, and I do feel as if he's not that I don't want to say rebuilt reputation. He didn't have to rebuild anything, but he's just built his reputation higher, I think, in the lower leagues at Clyde. And yeah, it's a really interesting one, Ross. Actually, it could be somebody like that, or it could be somebody yet again. Peter Grant kind of came out of nowhere, so it could be a bit of a out of nowhere appointment, or it could be somebody like Alloa are really good at hiring young managers. Could be like a Barry Robson or somebody else of that ilk who's looking at getting into management. So yeah, we'll see.
Do you know what I'm going to do, actually? I'm going to do what you do. I'm actually going to say that potentially one of either Darren Young or Stuart Petrie could get the Alloa job, because it just feels like a good fit for one of those two.
Yeah, very true. Yes, so next, and the final stop so far, who knows what will happen before this podcast finishes, is in League Two. Davy Irons has now actually, after last night's really heavy defeat away to Anna Athletic, has left his position as Stenhousemuir manager. Obviously, so he won't be in charge for the post-split fixtures. I thought this was maybe a bit of an odd one, in the sense that I thought, even though Stenhousemuir have not competed as well as they probably should have for the top four, they've been very hot and cold at times this season, but I do think that they were heading in the right direction in comparison to where they were prior to Irons coming back. But yeah, what do you make of this one, Ross?
Am I right in saying that Steny are finished in the bottom half of League Two?
I think after last night's results, they will have. Yeah, they're at sixth place.
Yeah. So I think, to be honest, that's probably sealed Davy Irons' fate either way, because on paper, I felt, as I said at the start of the season, I felt Steny could really challenge, at least for the playoffs. It's just not materialised. It looked at one point, I think it was maybe last week we were doing the podcast, I'd said if they had beat Stranraer, they were right back in it, and obviously didn't materialise. So I think Davy Irons probably just said, look, it's the right time for me to go. If they can get someone in quickly to assess the squad that's there, because I think it's a good squad on paper by and large, for someone to inherit, and they'll be looking to make plans for obviously what they'll hope will be a promotion push in League Two next year. I don't know about this one. It's a strange one to link someone with. I feel like it's harder than the Alloa one for me, because the only name I can think of that springs to mind with maybe kind of League Two calibre, and I don't even know that he would take it, is someone like Jim Weir or maybe a Kevin Harper. But I feel like Kevin Harper's been out the game for a decent amount of time now. Maybe not the right fit for what Steny are looking for. Jim Weir has the credentials to, push teams out of League Two, but I don't know what direction Steny are looking in. So it's a really tough one for me.
I think Kevin Harper's a really good shout, actually, Ross. I do think his hands were tied at Albion Rovers. Granted, all you need to do is look at what Brian Reid's doing. Albion Rovers are higher, looking to finish in a higher position than Kevin Harper finished with them. But yeah, Stenhousemuir could be a good shout for somebody like Kevin Harper. I think I'd like to see him back in management. I think he done some good stuff at Albion Rovers. I would love a Lowland or a West of Scotland League manager to get a shot at this job, Ross, I think if he hadn't signed a contract with BSC Glasgow, I think Stephen Swift would have been a really good shout for this job. Obviously, he's already managed there before. I know, obviously, it's the East, but obviously Brown Ferguson. I know, but obviously he's already been there and done that. So yeah, it'll be very interesting. I would love to see somebody out with the SPFL pyramid to get this, or Kevin Harper. Right, Ross, we're very quickly going to have a very brief overview of Scottish Cup results for lower league sides over the weekend and some of the kind of impact of the Saturday and Tuesday games. Obviously, unfortunately, I think it's the first time, I think it might be the first time in well over 10 years perhaps that the Scottish Cup quarterfinals won't feature a lower league side, which is, it's really sad actually. Maybe the first time, definitely this decade, I think, or something along those lines. Obviously Friday night, Inverness Cally Thistle bowing out 2-1 away to St Mirren. Morton, I thought, were really unlucky, put on a really good performance at FUUR Park against Motherwell, 1 each, and then obviously lost 5-3 on penalties. I thought Forfar, put on a solid performance, went down 1-0 away to, at home to Dundee United. I think that's probably why Forfar will be even more disappointed, Ross, about Tuesday night's defeat at home to Clyde, getting beat 3-1 in what's a relegation 6-pointer as well. I think that they'll be gutted at that result. If you head on over to Saturday, no real surprises there. Kilmarnock winning 3-1 against Montrose. Montrose side that it was a second game in well under 48 hours. St Johnstone winning 2-0 against Clyde. Our pal Ewan Robertson was at that game. Said obviously Clyde put on a decent performance in the second half, got a goal bizarrely chopped off as well. But a very young Clyde side put on a decent performance. And heading into league action, Ross, Raith Rovers obviously securing their playoff spot, which is just what a magnificent season that club have had, and I think they're just going to go from strength to strength next season. Arbroath beating Ayr United 4-0, Ross. I mean, I want to get your quick reaction to that one. That was a shock result for me on Saturday. I thought Arbroath was strong enough to win the game, but that's just another hammer blow for Ayr United. Hopkins not getting the results there.
I quite honestly wouldn't be surprised to see David Hopkins being the next casualty. To be honest, it's just not working out at all, and they cannot be the club that finishes 9th, because unless they get Falkirk in the playoffs, if Falkirk make the playoffs and don't win the league, I think that Thistle are in good form now, Cove Rangers are in good form now, and I believe it's Airdrie that are occupying the final spot currently. Yes. They're even starting to kind of turn the corner again after us absolutely shit canning them. So for me, I said last week when Ewan was on, if I was fighting for my life against Arbroath, the last place I wouldn't want to play Arbroath anyway, but at Gayfield was just not the match that I needed. And quite honestly, I'm actually not that surprised. I thought that Dick Campbell would really look for his team to go out and really kind of turn the screw almost on Ayr and really ramp up the pressure, and that's exactly what they've done. They're currently 2 points ahead of Ayr and Morton, and like you said, Morton turned in a good performance in the Scottish Cup against Motherwell. Really unlucky because penalties is always a lottery, and again last night Morton took a hard-earned point against Hearts as well. So for me, United, I fully expect to finish 9th at this point, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ross. Like I say, I kind of giving myself a wee shout out here. As you know, I predicted that I thought Ayr would finish 9th a few weeks ago, and I stand by that. I fully predict Arbroath to stay up, and I do think Morton will scrape that final spot to stay in the division. The playoffs back in the hands of Dunfermline Football Club. Obviously a good result on Saturday, 3-1 against Queen of the South, and obviously off the back of last night's result between Dundee and Inverness as well, Ross. Obviously it was a one each draw there. Inverness getting 2 guys sent off. I think they should have, if anybody's not seen it, watch Neil McCann's post-match after that. You could tell how seething he was with the decisions, and they'll be appealing those 2 red cards. 2 games left to go, Ross. It's back in Dunfermline's hands. Granted, I think they're only a point ahead of Inverness at the moment. Who do you fancy to take that final spot in the playoffs, Dunfermline or Inverness, Gally Thistle?
There's no point in me saying anything, because whatever I say I expect Dunfermline to do, they do the opposite. So I honestly don't know. Like, as I said, I jumped aboard the Inverness train. I think that Neil McCann has done a great job there, since he took over an interim charge. I think, quite honestly, they've kind of probably got the ascendancy. I mean, it was a good result for Dunfermline at the weekend, certainly. But I just feel like Inverness, like, Scott Allen is absolutely running the show there. Absolutely running the show there. And I just think, considering at the start of the season, Inverness were struggling to go from where they were to where they are now, to even be in the playoff mix, they'll be happy with that. But honestly, there's a point in it. I still think it'll be Inverness.
No, it's a really interesting one. Just to make it interesting, I'm going to go for Dunfermline. I think they might just have enough. League One, Ross, obviously, we'll touch on last night's results as well, because that's now the post-split fixture's been sorted. Probably off the back of last night's result, Saturday's result, a 2-0 defeat for Falkirk away to Cove. Cove will be disappointed with their defeat last night as well. I think Paul Hartley just said their players were running on empty. So yeah, just a really tough one for Falkirk to take, and it didn't get any better last night. East Fife, obviously, they beat Peterhead, and yet again another setback for East Fife. Last night, Darren Young said Tuesday night was the lowest point he's had in management as East Fife. They missed out on the top half, so they can't challenge for the promotion playoffs. They'll make up the bottom 5 in League One heading into the weekend. League Two, yet again, it's looking very likely that Brechin are going to be Club 48 after, even though they picked up a credible draw last night against Cowdenbeath, who haven't been great. A 3-0 defeat away to Annan. Annan's starting to kind of get back into a wee bit of a groove. Just a shame that it's so late in the day. Obviously, a 3-0 win last night, a 3-0 victory over Brechin on Saturday, 5-1 over Stenhouse Muir last night. Tony Wallace coming into a game as well, Ross. He just seems to, Annan and Tony Wallace just seem like a match made in heaven, to be honest. But for me, Elgin City 2, Albion Rovers 5 on Saturday, Ross. Before we move on to talking about the now confirmed champions, before we look ahead to this weekend, what a result that was for Albion Rovers.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on at Elgin. It's really strange. Just to quickly hit back in 2 points, I did say Cove Rangers would come in for the title. I think that them beating Falkirk on Saturday put Miller and McCracken on the precipice, and losing to Peterhead last night, I think, is just, really put the nail in the coffin. I was going to say something else about League One, but it's gone now. East Fife, just quickly on the split. I said at the time when we talked about it, I wasn't keen on the split, because East Fife are 4 points off the playoffs. They're in the same points as Montrose. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. I hope it doesn't stay. In League Two, yeah, absolutely. What an absolutely fantastic result for Albion Rovers. They've been playing a lot of the teams round about them recently, giving out a couple of, I don't want to say bodyings, but a couple of really strong results. But to then, go and got to Borough-Briggs, which, as we've said before, is not an easy place to go. Elgin just looks so out of sorts. I don't know what's went on there. But Albion going and absolutely hammering them. Just they are very comfortably safe, and making a lot of people, I think, eat their words about what was going to end up happening. The signings that obviously was made during the suspension has done absolute wonders for Albion Rovers. And next season, if they can replicate that form and keep that squad, who knows where they could be?
Yeah, I'm really, I really hope that they can keep some of the players they've brought in, some of the experienced players. They've got some really exciting young players there as well. I would love, I don't think he'll stay at Albion Rovers, unfortunately, but I think he'll be off. But, the likes of Harry Stone, obviously, I can't see him playing for Hearts in the Premiership next season. So, I'd love him to, go on loan to Albion Rovers or another club. But yeah, they've done a really good job, and hats off to Brian Reid. We've given him a good, a bit of stick, as have others. And yeah, we're eating our words now. So interesting to see how he shapes up things going into next season. Right, Ross, obviously, let's go back to our usual format, if you will, looking ahead to this weekend, which is obviously the first games of the post-split. So every side's got their fixtures now in League One and League Two, and obviously it's the penultimate games in the Championship. So let's kick off with the Championship, Ross. I'll kick us off here with the game that stands out for me, and that is that's actually Dunfermline at home to Arbroath. Massive must win for Dunfermline. Against an Arbroath side that aren't quite safe yet, to say the least. I think Arbroath will go there full of confidence. And yet again, Dunfermline, even though they're in the driving seat for the playoff spot over Inverness, I'm still not convinced. So, like you said, Ross, obviously predicting Inverness will probably pip them to it. This has got a draw written all over it for me. I think it'll be an interesting one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that Campbell go and try and get a point there. Considering that Ayr are playing Queen of the South, I fully expect Queen of the South to win there. And the game I'm going to talk about in just a second, Dunfermline, as you say, absolutely need the points. Arbroath will need a win, but I don't think that Campbell will go and risk it here. I think they've probably still got time to get the 3 points they need to really see them safe. But yeah, I can see a draw all over this, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. Mind you, literally just to contradict everything you said, if Dunfermline could get a big win here, obviously, and go into the last game of the season, if Inverness take it into the last game of the season, obviously Inverness are away to Hearts. Hearts, obviously, I know they're champions, right? Another disappointing result. A 0-0 against Morton last night, and fair play to Morton, good point. But yeah, it's just Inverness will go to Tynecastle thinking they can win as well. So I think it's going to be a fantastic fight for that final spot. What's the game that you've got your eye on, Ross?
Yeah, just on that quickly, Inverness have got no reason to not go to Tynecastle and think they can win. Hearts have won the league. Hearts are sitting with their feet up on the couch, slippers over the coffee table, no caring, absolute, not even out into first gear. Just one of the poorest set of champions I think I've seen over the course of a season. Funnily, as opposed to Robbie Nielsen's Dundee United last season. But anyway, Inverness, I think they should go for the win. They've got nothing really to lose. The game for me is the potential implication that comes from Capello of Morton versus Alloa. As we've just said, Alloa, unfortunately, relegated, confirmed. Not that I think they're going with this mentality, but they may go and see it as an opportunity to bring someone down with them. And for Morton, as I said, I think they've put in some strong performances. I think that they are just building up to maybe not giving someone a hiding, but a big statement result that says, do you know what, we can do this, we can survive. And I think they desperately have to stay in the Championship, because if they go into League One next season, they're arguably, for me, in a worse position than Alloa. I know they've got the takeover and all that to finalise, but for me, they're in a worse position to go down into League One than Alloa. So for me, I think Morton have to go. I don't care. I don't think that Gus McPherson will care, how they do it. They just have to get a win, be it a big bruising result for Alloa, or it's a horrible, as we fully expect, Gus McPherson scrappy 1-0 last minute, goal line tussle that creeps in. He will not care. They just need those points. And as you say, with Dunfermline playing Arbroath, he'll be looking for Dunfermline to do them a favour as well. Yeah,
if I was a Morton fan or a United fan, even though you're playing sides that don't have anything to play for at home, I'd still be shitting myself, to be honest, with how tight it is. So I really can't wait to see how things go. Now we're into the world of the split, Ross. League One, obviously, thankfully, I believe that all sides have got Thursday night off, which is good. I don't think Clyde players will know what to do with themselves. League One this coming weekend. I'm going to throw it straight back to you. What's the game that stands out? At the top order?
I was going to say, I don't know if I can actually pick a game.
Yeah,
if it's to say a game that probably doesn't really count for anything, probably Fife Dumbarton. Well, even at that, no, I take that back. I could actually talk about all these games. I'll talk about, for obvious reasons, Falkirk versus Cove, because the question now will become, yes, it's Tuesday now, they've got a couple of days. Will Gary Holt get some sort of bounce out of these players? Will he change it up tactically? Will they just react differently to his approach? They need it. They desperately need it, because for me, it is at this point Partick, Thistle and Coves to lose. I feel Falkirk just over the last couple of weeks, and particularly Peterhead, by all accounts, for all it was 1-0, absolutely had their way with Falkirk. Absolutely had their way. Absolutely embarrassed them. I don't
think Falkirk had a shot on target.
Well, being Clyde fans would know how that feels the last couple of weeks. So,
but at least Clyde have managed to actually
maybe shouldn't go there.
at least Clyde have managed to actually win a few games with no shots on target. So
well, yeah. It's massive, absolutely massive, especially with Partick taking on Airdrie as well. If I'm honest, I don't know if that's a game you've picked, but I'm just going to talk about it anyway, just quickly, because we can't. I don't think not talking about all the games in League One.
No, I know.
With the most at stake. I think this will probably beat Airdrie, but again, it depends. Airdrie could turn up and want to claw themselves right into the title race as well. So, it's all to play for. So, those two games, I think, in particular for the title implications, is huge. There's obviously, in fact, I'll let you carry on because I think you'll have the other one.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say Peterhead, obviously, away to Clyde. We were talking about this, Ross, as well. Even though it's possible, I don't think Peterhead are going to get dragged into it. I don't know. I just think that I know you're making your face, and I can completely look. I completely understand. I think everybody can get dragged into anything at this league over the course of the next 4 games, and that's why it's so hard to predict. But that's what makes it fun. I do think Peterhead will just have enough. I actually do think Peterhead need to win this game if they want to secure their status. I think if they win this game, I think that will probably be enough, to be honest. I think if Clyde could go here and get a point, I think that would be a good result, especially off the back of Clyde's victory on Tuesday night against Forfar. So yeah, I can see a draw in this game, to be honest, Ross. Peterhead not scoring many goals at all these days. Clyde actually looking pretty dangerous. That Goodwillie Jameson partnership up front seems to be working wonders. Jameson chipping in with some goals. I think that Clyde will probably have a full strength team, most likely play the same team that played against Forfar. So yeah, but mind you, it wouldn't surprise me to see Clyde win there, to be honest. And yeah, like I say, East Fife will home to Dumbarton. I think Dumbarton need to go there looking for a win. I think Dumbarton need to go. East Fife will be devastated after missing out on the top 5. Not really much to play for. I think that Dumbarton need to go there and need to look for a win. And that's where I think Clyde fans might have to worry, is that the fact that Dumbarton are going away to a kind of a hurting East Fife side. Mind you, then I think it's on Tuesday night. Clyde have then got East Fife at Broadwood, so it's going to be this next week is going to be mental, absolutely mental, Ross, in League One. League Two, obviously, just before we go any further, we've not really touched on it. Congratulations to Queen's Park, obviously champions after last night's draw at home to Elgin. Expected, very deserved champions, and I think they will add a lot to League One next season. And I think they will be very similar to what Cove have done, to be honest with you. In League One this season, I think they'll be similar, kind of fighting in those promotion playoffs. But that's a long way away, Nate. Yeah, Ross, League Two, this coming Saturday, 3 games taking place.
Yeah, for me, the obvious one again is Edinburgh City versus Stirling Albion. Edinburgh City, if they win this, for me, that's them very securely in the playoffs. Stirling obviously will want to go with a win. I can't count very well, so they'll go level with Edinburgh in joint second. So it's all to play for, a massive, but yeah, 6-pointer. It's an absolute 6-pointer.
Yeah, exactly. That's obviously the standout game. The other 2 games, not really much to play for. However, I do think Albion Rovers at home to Annan. I hope that's a high-scoring game after the antics of both sides in the last couple of weeks. So I think that would be a good one. Obviously, on next week's podcast, we'll be covering some of the results, obviously, from the games we've just spoken about, as well as the games that are taking place, the results from the Tuesday night, and also games taking place on the Thursday and the Saturday as well, because that will be, for example, for Clyde, for example, that will be the end of the season. You know, some sides finish the season on the Tuesday, some finish it on the Saturday and stuff like that. So, yeah, plenty for us to get through next week as well, Ross. And yeah, that's us for previewing this weekend's games, and let's see how the split goes. You know, I'm more of a fan of it than Ross is on paper, but that might change come next week. So we'll see how that goes. But before I let you go, Ross, we mentioned it at the top of the show. You know, I'm going to throw a wee question out to you, and we can have a wee few minutes discussion before we go and grab a beer and whatnot. Is the failed European Super League, obviously, fans and real football has won the day here. But in the midst of all of that, you've had, you know, lots of Scottish football clubs, Scottish lower league clubs, the SPFL, as you mentioned, coming out condemning it. You know, they had that really fantastic video, fair play to them, the This Is Football hashtag being used there. Loads of clubs posting the This Is Football. Obviously, from our point of view, I thought the Clyde one was great. But I really wanted to ask you, even though this is thankfully now not going ahead, it's failed, but in the midst of all that, Ross, what can Scottish football, and in particular lower league Scottish football, kind of take away from the last few days? You know, what can the governing bodies and the fans and the clubs and the supporters, looking at all of this, what can we now take away from this and try and move forward with in our game?
Yeah, it's a difficult one for me because of the context, obviously, being a lot of these clubs, or in fact, all those clubs are big, you know, financial corporate giants, where by comparison we are not. I think the key message for me was the 2 most egregious, and I said this to you and Ali when it came out, the 2 worst for me were Man United and Liverpool. 2 clubs from working class cities, built up by working class people, and just being taken over the way they have by these big corporate giants, you know, people, businessmen from abroad. They've just completely lost touch with what made them what they are, you know. And I think it doesn't have a massive impact for us, but I think it's a good grounding for every club. It absolutely should be a good grounding for every club. What I will say is, maybe not across the board, but I think by and large, a lot of Scottish football clubs, they do interact with their fans. They respect their fans. There's only so much I can say because that's all. There's only so much I can say because there's things I want to say about our club, but I'm not going to go there. But by and large, they are the clubs listen to their supporters. I think by and large they respect their supporters. We've talked before about there has to be change in Scottish football. I feel like I had a rant at the start of the show, so I'm trying not to, but there's almost a hypocrisy for me about the SPFL putting that out, considering that the whole basis of the European Super League was there was 6 teams in England, 3 teams in Italy, 3 teams in Spain who've broken off, and they had all the power and all the money. And the SPFL like, well, we oppose that. Well, Rangers and Celtic have all the money and the power in Scotland. Celtic and Rangers, who are currently still trying to force their youth clubs into the SPFL, who have pocketed by a vast majority of the TV money. The SPFL also have to look at, the European Super League was done in response because the excuse was, we're not happy with UEFA. You put that in context, the SPFL still doesn't have a sponsor. That goes back to that ineptitude that they're talking about with UEFA. There's just a whole layer of hypocrisy here that I think you have to look out for. The sentiment is brilliant. I absolutely get it. The video packages that clubs, especially, I think, was it BSC Glasgow maybe put one out? Clyde one in particular was great. I think the sentiment behind it is brilliant. But in practicality, for specifically the SPFL, it is not true. They have to take a long, hard look at themselves. Yes, as I say, it's not the same potential impact because it's not like Rangers and Celtic were going. So I think we can safely say that Rangers and Celtic were not two of the three clubs that were supposed to be joining the European Super League. But for me, there are points that we can take away and look at. But I don't want to make the point I'm going to because I do worry it could possibly get us in trouble. But there's a lot of dodgy shit the SPFL have done. We have laughed at no end about the situation with Hearts and Partick Thistle and also empathised with them. We've just talked about Brechin. There are things that the SPFL have had a hand in that are a bad look for them, and that continues. As I say, the league still doesn't have a sponsorship. We are nearly finished a whole season without a sponsor. That could go on into next season when clubs are now starting to look to try and bounce back from the pandemic. Hopefully next season getting supporters back into the grounds and trying to make money again. There's just a whole host of things. I'm sorry, but for Scottish football to change, we need to move away from this model of Rangers and Celtic being allowed to do essentially what they want, get what they want, and then this whole thing of voting, that every club has a vote, it's total bollocks. And we know that now. The last 12 months have shown us that it's total bollocks. There has to be a full-scale review and consultation with clubs and with supporters as well as to how we now shape Scottish football, because yes, there is a chance for us to change, but the cynic in me does not think it will do it. And we're not in danger of a situation where like Rangers and Celtic go away and become like Man United and Liverpool and Chelsea and whatever else. But there's already that power and money vacuum at the top of the Scottish football pyramid. That now has to be looked at very quickly. If they really mean what they're saying about this is football, we are for the fans, they now have to do that. It's the onus on clubs, it's on supporters to keep forcing it, and the SPFL needs to take a long, long, hard look at itself before it can firmly say, without hypocrisy, that they are about football.
Yeah, no, I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, to be honest, Ross. I think that some of the things that Scottish football as a whole can take away from this is the importance of communication and transparency from the governing bodies, from the clubs, from the fans, from the fan clubs, supporters clubs, everything. Regular communication, transparency have to be at the centre of Scottish football moving forward. It's a big, big learning for the SPFL, I think, in particular, as you've rightly said. Let's try and not just make the "this is football" hashtag or whatever, or "this is football." Let's not try and take advantage of it for a day. Let's just hope it's not just something the SPFL done to jump on a bandwagon. Let's actually hope they mean it, and they actually take some of the things that they're doing forward. If they really care that much about the supporters and the grounds, everything, collaborate with clubs that are trying to make the whole match day experience and everything that goes around it better. Help them, support them where possible. That's something that I think we can do moving forward and should do moving forward. You see the amount of great work from the Premiership down to the West of Scotland leagues and amateurs, people that are working on ground improvements, infrastructure improvements for fans coming back, etc. How can we support the clubs and the volunteers and the staff moving forwards? And yeah, this really just, I think, emphasises and re-emphasises how important the local communities are to our football clubs in this country. And I think everything that's went on, just the ignoring of the fans throughout this whole saga, has actually just re-emphasised how important our fans and how important the communities and the businesses and the supporters clubs and everything that comes with it is to Scottish football at all levels. So let's hope that those are just some of the learnings that the SPFL, SFA, and others take away from this shambles. And just as a side note, just as we're finishing, let's hope we never see anything like that again. To be honest,
I think just quickly, Don, for me, sorry, just to finish us off, supporters of Scottish football, because that's what we're talking about, but supporters everywhere have to take note that true football fans caused the downfall of the European Super League. The strength is there in numbers. If no one else, if supporters can find a way to all get on side, they have shown that fundamental change can be achieved through unity. I feel like a union leader. I'm not meant to be. It's not what I'm trying here. I'm
feeling motivated.
I feel like this is like a major turning point for football as a whole, but for Scottish football in particular. In numbers, Scottish football fans have so much more power than I think they actually realise. And that has been shown the world across over the last 48 hours that true football fans will win if they're driven and motivated enough.
You're spot on, Ross. Exactly. It doesn't matter who you support, where you come from. If you come together behind the right reasons, we'll get there in the end, which is exactly what it is. No, you're spot on, Ross, and that's actually a really nice way to end what has been another jam-packed Talking Lower League. And yeah, I can't believe that we'll probably only have another episode or two before the season comes to a close, which just seems mental. I can't believe we've done a whole season of podcasts nearly virtually, which is just mad. And yeah, it will be, obviously, we're already, anybody that's listening, we're already planning plenty of exciting things for when we're back in person doing Talking Lower League for season 2021-2022, which is just mad to see. So yeah, we'll be back next week talking about all the excitement from the lower leagues and everything that comes alongside that. If you don't already, head over to social media at TB Lower League on Twitter, Talking Lower League across other channels, including Instagram and LinkedIn and YouTube as well. And yeah, as ever, thank you everybody. Stay safe, keep going. Some light at the end of the tunnel. We're all getting out and about, hopefully for a wee beer next week. And yeah, we'll see you all very soon.